Look, we all say we want a sustainable future, right? But how do we actually make that happen? It turns out one of the biggest hurdles isn't about inventing some new gadget, it's about something way more fundamental: what we decide to measure in the first place.
I mean, seriously, where do you even start with a question that big? We're talking about steering the entire planet, our whole global society, towards a better future. It's a lot.
Well, a pretty good place to start is with this old saying you've probably heard: if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. The idea is super simple, right? To fix a problem, you've got to be able to track it, you've got to put a number on it. And believe it or not, this one simple idea kicked off this decades-long hunt for the perfect way to measure sustainability.
So what did that hunt actually look like? Well, our journey today starts by looking at how the tools we use to measure our impact have changed. I mean, really changed over the years. And wow, it has been an evolution. If you go back to the 70s, we were basically just trying to measure direct harm. Is this factory polluting that river? Then the 90s came along, and we got big ideas like the triple bottom line, thinking about people, planet, and profit. That's when sustainability really started to go mainstream. Fast forward to the 2000s, and it was all about market-based tools. Things like carbon footprints became all the rage. And now, today, the whole conversation has shifted again. It's all about how finance, using tools like ESG, and big global goals can steer the ship.
So, we've got this whole toolbox full of metrics now, which sounds great. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Pretty much every single one of these tools comes with its own hidden traps. It is not as simple as just picking one and calling it a day.
Okay, let's start with a really crucial idea: ecosystem services. Just think of this as all the absolutely vital work that nature does for us, totally for free. We're talking clean air, clean water, the little bees that pollinate our food, all of it. We never get a bill in the mail for any of this, right? And because of that, we tend to take it completely for granted.
But what if we did? What if nature sent us an invoice? Well, get this. Estimates say the value of all these free services is nearly twice the entire global GDP. Let that sink in. The work nature does for us is worth double the world's combined economic output. So losing these services, that's not just some environmental problem, it's an absolute economic catastrophe waiting to happen.
Okay, so in an attempt to manage all this, we invented market tools like carbon credits. The concept is actually pretty simple. A company that pollutes can buy a certificate. That certificate represents 1 ton of CO2 that's been removed from the atmosphere or prevented from being emitted somewhere else. They're basically offsetting their pollution.
And on paper, the promise is amazing, right? We can use the power of the market to fund awesome green projects. But the reality? The peril is massive. The carbon credit market has been absolutely riddled with issues. It's not transparent, a lot of the projects have questionable benefits, and you guessed it, it opens the door for a ton of greenwashing.
So this leads to a super important question. If these market tools are so shaky, how on earth do we hold corporations accountable? How can investors possibly know which companies are for real and which are just faking it?
Well, for a huge chunk of the financial world, the answer has been these 3 letters: ESG. It stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance. It's basically a framework to score a company on how it handles those issues, and it has become an absolute giant, guiding literally trillions of dollars in investments by trying to figure out a company's risks when it comes to sustainability. But, and you knew there was a but coming, here is the big trap with ESG. A high score doesn't always mean a company is actually good for the planet. A lot of the time, it just means they're really good at paperwork. Seriously, a company can have amazing reporting policies and get a top-notch score, while its actual impact on the environment is terrible. And that's because the score is often measuring the financial risk to the investor, not the company's real-world impact on the planet.
And that right there brings us to a huge turning point in our story. Because what if I told you that even if we had the perfect, flawless metric, measurement is still only half the battle? It turns out there's a much deeper, more important question we need to be asking. This is where we move beyond just measuring things, and we get into the idea of a great transition. The question shifts. It's no longer just how do we measure the problem, it's now how do we fundamentally change the entire systems that are causing the problem in the first place?
This whole idea is what's known as a sustainability transition, and it is so much more than just swapping out one piece of tech for another, like trading your gas car for an EV. No, this is a deep,
fundamental transformation of the whole shebang. Not just the technology, but the government policies, the physical infrastructure, our own daily habits, and even the cultural ideas that glue the whole system together.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about changing entire systems, we need a way to understand how that kind of epic change actually happens. Because it's not just random chaos, there are patterns to it.
Exactly. If just inventing a better gadget isn't enough to do the trick, then what does it take? How do you actually get from a world running on fossil fuels to one running on renewables? How does a revolution like that really happen?
Well, a really useful way to think about this is a framework called the multi-level perspective. It breaks change down into 3 levels. At the very top, you have the landscape. These are the huge, slow-moving pressures like climate change or a pandemic. In the middle, you have the regime. That's the stable, dominant system we have right now, like the fossil fuel industry. And down at the bottom, you have the niche. These are like little protected greenhouses, where radical new ideas, like a tiny solar startup, can get their start.
The key is that these 3 levels are always interacting. Think of it like this. Pressure from the landscape, say a massive heat wave that gets everyone talking about climate change, starts to create cracks in the regime. Suddenly, the old way of doing things doesn't seem so solid anymore. And that creates a window of opportunity for one of those radical ideas from the niche to burst through and really challenge the mainstream.
But why is it so dang hard for those new ideas to break through? Well, it's because the dominant system, the regime, is locked in. It's held in place by billions of dollars of existing infrastructure, huge government subsidies, our own established habits, and entire industries full of people trained to do things the old way. A single, better technology on its own almost never has enough power to overcome all that inertia. And what this means is that you can't just manage a transition from the top down. A president or a prime minister can't just sign an order and make it happen. It requires something called transition governance, which is basically a nice way of saying it's a messy, complicated dance of coordination between governments, companies, NGOs, regular citizens, everyone, trying to push more or less in the same direction.
But as we try to navigate this whole messy process, there's one last absolutely crucial point. A technical solution that screws over a bunch of people is not a real solution. A transition that leaves communities behind is not, by its very definition, sustainable.
This is the heart of what's called a just transition. It's all about making sure that as we shift to a green economy, we do it in a way that's fair and inclusive. It means the good stuff and the bad stuff are shared equitably, and that we're not sacrificing vulnerable communities along the way. Think about it. Rooftop solar is great, but it shouldn't just be a perk for wealthy homeowners while everyone else gets left behind.
So, that's where we're at. We know for a fact that massive transitions are coming our way, in energy, in food, in how we get around. All these metrics and frameworks, they can help us understand what's happening. But the ultimate challenge, the real question for all of us, is how do we make sure the future we're building isn't just a green one, but a just one too?